Hey guys, I started the recording and then my phone rang and instead of pausing it, I just had to start this thing over. So I saw a lot of reasonable answers. We're going to go through versions of possible correct answers. If they're telling me that two lines are perpendicular, and again, I don't really care whether you call these lines rays or segments, then presumably we're going to end up with right angles. I think that that is the best conclusion. Some people went a step beyond and told me maybe that two of these angles were congruent, which is of course true, but it's more than a simple conclusion, and you really couldn't do it with just one reason. So all I wanted was the nice and simple, something like BCY is right. A number of people called it angle C, but there's a lot of angle Cs. I don't know which one they were talking about. BCY is an option, ACZ, ACB, ZCY, other names for those same angles. Anything like that is right, and my reason should justify my conclusion. So if what I already know, lines are perpendicular, then what I'm trying to show, they form right angles. All right. I talked to the other teachers and we've been having kind of the same issues with these sometimes, always, nevers. People get the answer right, but really that's small potatoes because the answer is almost always sometimes. Weird that I say almost always and sometimes because always sometimes. But so saying the correct answer isn't really the big deal. It's explaining it. And really what I saw a major lack of when I was going through and looking at responses was defining the key terms here. And those key terms are going to be supplementary and congruent. So a lot of people showed me something like this and said yes, and showed me something like this and said no, which of course is, is the heart and soul of it. But I do want to define supplementary. So two angles are sup if they form a line. A lot of people say straight line, but I feel like that is redundant. What other kind of line would it be? I'm going to say in this case, the angles are both right and therefore congruent. Maybe I'll quote, if two angles are right, then they are congruent. And maybe I'll throw in the typical measurement that I see, 150 and 30, and say if two angles don't have the same measure, then they are not congruent. Okay, so I should answer the question. It is, of course, sometimes. So we've defined supplementary. We've used the definition of congruency and even a theorem there. We could have done it in other ways, but this looks pretty reasonable to me. Okay. Let's move on to a very algebraic one. Measure of the supplement of an angle is 20 less than blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say that my angle in question equals x, that 180 minus x is its supplement, and 90 minus x is the complement. It says the supplement of an angle is, so there's my 180 minus x equals 20 less than, that's where I usually put a minus 20 at the other side of something. 3 times the measure of the complement. So 3 times that complement, 90 minus x. and I can solve from here. I usually do it in kind of weird ways. I'll try to do it kind of the normal way this time around. If you're interested in my wackiness, I can show you my strange methods as well. So just distributing that 3 in this case, let's subtract 180, I get 90. Also subtract that 20 and I get 70. We'll add that 3x to both sides and I'll get 2x. I'll get that x equals 35 degrees. If we were in class, I would make some comment about going to the refrigerator, getting myself a snack, feeling real good about myself, finishing up this problem like that. But the fact of the matter is I haven't finished it. They asked me to find the measure of the complement. So the complement in general is 90 minus x. So the complement is going to be 90 minus 35 is 55 degrees. And there you have it. Okay, last up is the proof. Looking at these, it was a mixed bag. Some people nailed it 100% perfect. Some people didn't have much of a clue of where to go beyond the givens. And a surprising number of us are still not numbering our steps. Very silly place to lose points on the upcoming test. You definitely want to number your steps. I think I can do this one in 3 steps. I'm going to say 1, angle 1 is comp to angle 3, and in the same step, but in a different line. Angle 4 is comp to angle 2, and like pretty much always, I started my proof with my givens. Now, a lot of people said, ooh, complementary, so then they form right angles. Well, if adjacent angles are complementary, yeah, they form right angles. But looking at this diagram, do any of these angles look like right angles to you? They don't to me. I mean, angle 1 and angle 3 are comp. They're nowhere next to one another. I don't really see any right angles, so let's not go there. What I do see are these, the vertical angles. So in step 2, I can jump right to it and say angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. About maybe a third of the people who put this in, put in like a previous step to say angle 2 and angle 3 are vertical. And nothing wrong with that. That's great. We have to make a decision as a geometry class, like what things we can assume and what things we can just write into the proof. This is something that I allow you just to write into the proof. So you, without referring to them as vertical beforehand, if you said this, then I will just look at it and go, oh yeah, those are vertical angles. That makes sense to me. My reason therefore is just going to be if 2 angles are vertical, which I spell vert, then they are congruent. Then they are congruent. And I know that my thens and theys are always cursive for no apparent good reason. It's just a little weird. Okay, looking at what I've got, kind of eyes on the prize, I'm trying to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. What's the deal with angle 1 and angle 4? They're complementary to 3 and 2. And 3 and 2, we've just told that you are congruent. So using another one of our new theorems from this chapter, I think we can get there. It is, so angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. My reason will be if 2 angles are complementary, not to each other, not to the same angle, but are complementary to congruent angles, then they are congruent. Okay. And that meets all my criteria. The if part is what I know. 2 angles are complementary to congruent angles. I knew that 1 was complementary to 3, 4 was complementary to 2, and that 2 and 3 were congruent before I wrote that step. So the if part is what I already know. The then part is exactly what I want to show. So there it is. If you do have questions, please feel free to set up an appointment and ask me, or just send me an email or anything of that nature. There were a few people who I thought could use maybe a little extra review of this. I haven't looked at all of them as of yet, but I shall. All right, have a good one. Thanks.